Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. Today, on Sunday the 15th of May 2022, there is a state election in the most populous federal state of Germany, North Rhine-Westfailure. The last state elections were in 2017, and already back then I covered that election and I summarized the results on my channel. So the first results are expected at around 6 p.m. Central European Standard Time, and of course I will be updating you about this then. But in this short video now, I want to talk a little bit about the polls, about the current governor that is not in office since 2017. He was the Minister for Transport under the governor Armin Laschet, and only in October last year he was elected governor of North Rhine-Westfailure. And that is of course due to the fact that Armin Laschet was the frontrunner for the CDU in last autumn's federal election in Germany, and Mr. Laschet said that I will go to Berlin without a return ticket. That is the way he phrased it, and this is why his chosen man Hendrik Wüst was elected then governor in last autumn, and he is in office since then. So let's take a little look at the polls. What are the surveys telling us so far? The CDU is expected to still be the strongest party, followed of course by the Social Democrats and the Green Party, then the FDP and the AfD. This is pretty usual for Western Germany. If we compare that to the outcome of the last federal election in 2017, we see that the CDU will lose a little bit, the SPD will lose a little more, the Green Party will gain massively, the Liberal Party will lose massively, the AfD the AfD will stay more or less the same, the Linke, they were not in parliament last time and they are not expected to make it into parliament this time either, because there is this 5% hurdle, of course. You must exceed a threshold of 5% of the votes to be represented as a faction in parliament. Very usual in Germany. So if we look at the AfD as an aftermath, I believe, of the big migration of 2015, they could get more votes here, they could become more popular, or their message became more relevant for many voters, but it seems like that whenever an election comes around, this doesn't really translate into seats in parliament, and then after the election, they go up in the polls again. I wonder why, and then they go down again come the next election. It's a miracle. So before the last election, there was a coalition ruling in North Rhine-Westphalia between the Social Democrats and the Green Party, and this was ended then when Armin Laschet took over with the FDP, the Liberal Party, or self-declared Liberal Party, as a coalition part. That is black and yellow. So this coalition, the currently ruling coalition, does not have a majority according to the polls. Right now, they only get 43% of the votes, and I think it would be very unlikely if, these are just polls, but it would be very unlikely if they could still maintain their majority. So I think the most probable outcome would be a large coalition, a grand coalition of the CDU and the SPD, or of the CDU and the Green Party. I think that is a little bit more likely. Coalitions that include the color blue here, you can safely exclude, because no other parties would form a coalition with the AfD. They are boycotting them, of course, since they were formed. And also, I think that the current coalition that we have on the federal level, this red, green, yellow coalition, will not be formed, because you will not form a three-party coalition if you don't have to. You want to keep the number of parties in the coalition minimized. So I think that Mr. Wüst, even though he wasn't elected by anybody else than the MPs of his ruling coalition now so far, I think this could be the first election that he really wins, and he could remain in power. He could remain the governor of North Rhine-Westphalia, as funny as that sounds. But that just goes to show how utterly defeated the German people are already. I might have to bring some things up about him and tell you what he said in recent months. So in the beginning of the year, he said that we don't need any medical reasons for forcing people to take certain medical products. Force in as far as you are forced to pay a fine on a regular basis every half year or every quarter or something like that if you don't take the product, if you decide to stay pure-blooded. And he said we don't need medical reasons, it is a question of revenge. I'm paraphrasing here, of course, but he said that this should be a signal to the obedient people who took the product. Look, we don't forget about you. We are going after these people who refuse the product, and they are the reason why you have to suffer. They are taking your freedom away. They are taking your safety away. They are the reason why this ailment is not yet defeated, and we're coming after them. We will get you revenge. That is what he was saying in front of the TV cameras while he was sitting on a couch in the German public broadcasting, in one of these political propaganda shows that they have. So this is the kind of guy he is. He is a lawyer by training. He studied law and he worked as a lobbyist for a company that is serving people, organizations, and other large companies who want to gain access to politicians. That is his business. Getting big money into contact with the politicians so that, I guess I don't have to spell it out for you. This is how lobbyism works. And his business was to make sure that people with a lot of money, people with a lot of influence, gain access to the politicians that they need access to in order to get some favorable legislation or in order to suggest certain things to them. So he was acting in this position as the lubricant in our wonderful Western democratic system, working at the interface between big industry and our parliaments and our governments here. Sometimes they bypass this and they gain direct access to German bureaucrats. That is also a way that these corporations, with the help of lobbyists like him, gain access to our administration directly. And maybe this is more efficient than influencing a politician. Why not influence the people who write the bills in the first place? And in many cases, these are just bureaucrats. Anyway, so this middle-aged man with the soft boy face is so popular that he is expected to receive almost a third of the votes in North Rhine-Westphalia. Well, doesn't that tell you a lot about the voters in North Rhine-Westphalia? And I know what many people will be saying, that there is no political solution and that voting people into parliament isn't the solution and they're part of the system, and if you vote you don't have the right to complain later on, and so on. But seriously, if only one part of the population, if only more conservative or right-winged or even liberal or libertarian-minded people are going this way, and all the people who are pro-big pharma, pro-mandates, pro-immigration, pro-alphabet and rainbow and so on, if these people keep voting, then nothing ever changes. And this whole idea that you somehow legitimize the ruling parties by giving your vote to a party that is in opposition to these parties in almost every question, or if you pick one of these thousands or maybe dozens of small parties that are definitely in opposition to the mainstream, how does that legitimize in any way what the SPD or the CDU is saying? It doesn't. So I think even though voting might not be the solution for every problem in our system, sure, but at least it sends a message to the mainstream that there are people who have a different opinion. If you don't vote, well, then the people who do vote decide who is sitting in parliament. And once again, if you vote for a party that is explicitly running on a platform that is going counter to these mainstream ideas, then you don't legitimize that at all. It is the opposite. You are are at least sending a message that you disagree. And that is why voting for the AfD, for example, or for Die Linke or whatever, is maybe not solving the problems because they don't win the elections and they will not be in a coalition because they're boycotted by the others, the AfD at least, but you will not legitimize in any way Mr. Wüst or the Green Party or whatever. Alright, so this is what I wanted to tell you today about the election that is going on right now in North Rhine-Westphalia, and later I will post something about the results, of course. Enjoy the rest of your day. Servus, Kameraden.